us having a $350 billion drop in the deficit last year, my first year as president. We also learned that for the first time since 2016, the Treasury Department is planning to pay down the national debt issued to the public this quarter. And for all the talk the Republicans make about deficits, it didn't happen a single quarter under my predecessor. Not once. The bottom line is the deficit went up every year under my predecessor before the pandemic and during the pandemic. And it's gone down both years since I've been here, period. They're the facts. And why is it important? Because bringing down the deficit is one way to ease inflationary pressures in an economy where a consequence of a war and gas prices and oil and food and it's a different world right this moment because of Ukraine and Russia. We reduced federal borrowing and we helped combat inflation. This process is a great deal, is good news, but it didn't happen by itself. The previous administration increased the deficit every year it was in office, in part because of its reckless $2 trillion tax cut. I know you're tired of hearing me saying but a $2 trillion tax cut that was not paid for, And a tax cut that largely benefited the biggest corporations, 55 of which earned $40 billion in profits and paid not a single penny in income tax in 2020, and wealthiest Americans, like the billionaires, who on average pay just 8% in federal taxes. The previous administration not only ballooned the deficit, it undermined the watchdogs, the inspector generals, whose job it was to keep the pandemic relief funds from being wasted. Remember, at the time, I kept saying they're going to fire the inspector generals. Well, they fired the inspector general. And in my administration, those watchdogs are back. The Justice Department has a chief prosecutor for pandemic fraud who's going to go after the criminals who stole billions in relief money meant for small businesses and American families.